Welcome, everybody, back to the Dr. Nobody podcast today. I have Wendy. Wendy has been a good friend of mine, a mentor to me, advisor. She was there for me when I was undergrad. So oh man, I don't want to say because then it might age you, but like a little over 10 years ago now. So it's been a while, good times. And I asked Wendy to come in today to talk a little bit about herself and about the programs like the McNair program that I joined in, and how important it is in people's lives and how much it can contribute to your success. So Wendy, say hi to our audience and just talk a little bit about yourself.
Hello and hi, Dr. Nobody. Thank you so much for having me today. I look forward to today's podcast and just wanted to let you know, maybe it's been a pleasure meeting you or knowing you the last 10 years. A little bit about myself. So we can start about just where I come from and where I'm at now. So I came from the Dominican Republic when I was 13 years old. I was actually born here, but then I lived in Dominican Republic for about 6 years and then came back over here. Luckily, I went to a bilingual program at Dominican Republic. So when I came back, it wasn't that difficult for me since English, I still practice my English over there. I came here in my 8th grade, finished my high school year, and then off to college. I got my associates from Middlesex County College, got my bachelor's degree and my master's from Kane, and I'm pretty much been at Kane ever since. So I am a proud Kane alum. I've been at Kane for about 21 years now in total.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, exactly.
Basically the age of my brother.
Yeah. So I started as an undergrad. I finished my undergrad at Kane. I did my master's, and then I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later. But then somehow I ended up, coming back to Kane as a full timer, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, yeah, you got some time in there in history. You should own Kane at this point.
I'm working on it.
That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah, that's great. So I guess the first question is, why did you go to the Dominican Republic and then come back? What was the factors there?
Okay, that's a great question. So my parents have always been self-employed. And back then, my parents owned a travel agency, and it was like a money, I'm trying to think about the word in English. It was remesas, where they send money to the Dominican Republic and you received it. So we went there in hopes of actually living there forever and retiring. My parents were planning to stay over there and, stay living. And then, however, business did not go as planned. And we had to kind of almost immediately come back from the Dominican Republic to here. And my dad had to come back and make sure that, business were back in order. And, that's pretty much why we ended up going. And it was actually not our intent to come back. We planned to stay there and, the Dominican Republic. But, it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it is what it is. You still learn from it. And I guess it happened to me too. I was in Puerto Rico for 2 years and I came back. So it's a good experience to live somewhere else, especially your home,
Yeah, actually it was a great experience. I have to say that living there definitely is a different culture. And I learned a lot, even with I feel like just being able to compare the living over here to the Dominican Republic is so much different, because over there, I think you have more of a quality of life, whereas here is more like hard, working and hustling. So, that's one thing that I look forward to maybe in the future, to be able to go back at least, like a few years out of the month, to be able to live, back where I came from. So,
just straight up chill over there.
Yes. That's
no snow.
Yes. Good weather, sun, beach. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you did your associates. Why did you choose to do an associates and then a bachelor's? Sometimes people usually decide to go straight for the bachelor since it's kind of almost the same thing.
Yeah. So the reason why I chose to do my associates first was because I was paying for my, my own degree. And obviously, in terms of money wise, it was more affordable. And I've always been lucky where I lived at home and my parents took care of everything as far as like my housing, but when it came to studies and to college, I kind of was the one that, paid all my expenses. So because of that, I just chose to go to a community college to be able to save more money. So when I transferred over for the bachelor's, I was able to, afford it and not graduate with so much debt, as you may
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That can be crippling. Really slows people down. So after you did your bachelor's, did you do your master's right after, or did you wait a little bit?
Yeah, so that actually I did it right after. So, way back when I graduated in 2002, just getting your master's alone was kind of like a big deal. So I wasn't even planning to go for my master's. I was just thinking about I'm going to get my bachelor's, I'm going to get a job, work in the fields. But I had a graduate assistantship. I'm sorry, I was a student worker at the time at King University. And the person who I worked for I told her, well, I'm graduating. It's been a pleasure working with you, but unfortunately, I can't work with you anymore because I'm graduating. And then she told me, well, you can stay with me for another 2 years. And I'm like, how's that? She goes, well, I have a graduate assistant position. If you're interested, all you got to do is apply for whatever program you want to apply for. If you get it, I'll request you to work in the department. You could be my graduate assistant. You can get your master's for free and you'll work with me for 2 more years. So
Wow,
I
what a
heard the word,
deal!
so I heard the word free and I said, absolutely, and I had a great working relationship with her. I actually do whenever I see her on campus, because she recently retired, but she worked with me for many years. I always thank her for that because it wasn't really part of my plan to go straight into my master's degree. But because this opportunity was given to me by her and it was mentioned by her, I took advantage of it and I went straight through.
Would you consider her your mentor?
Yes, I would. She was one of my mentors, yes. And she's the one that always she also worked in Kane for many years, like I think like 30 plus years, and she just retired. And she was one that always told me like, things that I should do and the benefits of working in a college. And, that's what probably kind of steered me to going back to, college atmosphere. But yeah, and she's someone that I hold very dear to my heart and I'm very thankful for it because I probably, uh, my degree is probably because of her,
Mm,
my master's degree, because
nice.
it was definitely not, something that I thought about. So it's funny because I think the deadline to apply was like May 15 and I applied like May 1st. And of course, when you just apply for things and you don't care for it, you get it. And then I got a response like, mid June, end of June. And then she said, okay. So, she requested me and then I started working back again in the fall semester.
Man, that is like the epitome of my life. Doing things last minute and getting it, not
Oh,
even
yes, I
trying.
know. Yes, I know. But I just feel like when you don't really want something or you're not really, you're not stressing over something, that's when you really get it. Because my
Yeah.
master's, I was just kind of like, well, you know what? I'll apply for it. If I get it, fine. If I don't, it wasn't really in my plans anyways. But I ended up obviously getting in and then, it all worked out.
Yeah, I think we could all say that also resembles like when you're trying to find something in the house and you
Yeah.
can't find it, and then when you're not looking for it, you find it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Well, it's funny because that happens to me all the time. Like I'll see something in my house out of place. I see it every day. The one day I'm looking for it, I'm like, I can't find it. That's just the way it goes.
Yep, that's the way it goes. Um, so I'm sorry if you mentioned it, but what were each of your associate, bachelor, and master degrees in?
Okay. So my associate's was in business management. My bachelor's was in management science, which is pretty similar to business management, but at Kane, it was just called management science. And then my master's was in public administration. But actually, I wanted to do whenever, when I was given this opportunity, I was like, okay, grad school. I was looking at to what I should go into for grad school. Since it wasn't in my plans, I hadn't really researched much about it. I wanted to do like an MBA, but unfortunately, at that time in Kane, we didn't have an MBA. So the closest degree to the MBA was the MPA, which is why I ended up getting a master's in public administration. But it actually, if they would have had an MBA, that's probably the route I would have taken. But it was the closest thing, and it all worked out at the end because now I work at a university, public university, and I'm a director there. So
So
things
before
happen
we
for
get
a
into
reason.
that, yeah,
Mhm.
things happen for a reason. Why did you want to get an MBA? Why did you think that was the degree that you needed to get?
Okay, so where I saw myself as an undergrad was always working, in a corporate management in corporate. Like I never really considered or thought about working at a university, to be quite honest. One of my dream jobs back as an undergrad, don't ask me why, but I wanted to work in like Johnson and Johnson as like a manager there, like a big head honcho at J&J or something like that. So that's why in my mind as an undergrad, when I was asked to go to grad school, I was told about it. I thought about, hey, the closest thing to what I want and where I'm going to end up working at would be an MBA. But then I saw that, that wasn't an option. And then that was the best thing, the closest degree to what I wanted.
Yeah. So it worked out for you in the end. So it doesn't matter. Um, so Wendy, let's talk more about what you do right now. So
Okay.
Can you go over your professional side of things now?
Okay, yes. So I'm currently a director of the McNair Scholars Program, where you were one of my students way back 10
That's
years
right.
ago. Yeah. So for those of you that are not familiar with the McNair Scholars Program, so what our program does is it works with low income, first generation, and or underrepresented students to promote them to graduate education. As we know, it's not very common that minorities, because of lack of guidance or of assistance, minorities don't really know what to do as far as going for the graduate degree. And if they do, they don't have much guidance. So what my program does, it promotes graduate education for students that are in need of or that don't have the support or guidance. And, I guess we'll talk a little bit more afterwards about what the McNair program offers. But, in a nutshell, it's, promoting graduate education.
Okay. So the McNair program, where does it originate from? Where did it come from?
Okay, so it's funded by the Department of Ed, and there have few programs that are funded under the Department of Ed. One of them is the TRIO programs, and under the TRIO programs, we have several programs. One of the more, I guess, common ones or more known ones is like the Upper Bound program. So we have like Upper Bound, Talent Search, and then we have the Student Support Services, the McNair program. So our program is one of the newest programs. It started in 1986. So basically, the Upper Bound program has been around for, I don't know, 30 plus years. Those are one of the first programs. So that's pretty much promoting from high school to college. Then we have the Student Support Services program, which is, advisement or help for the first 2 years of your college. And then we have the McNair program, which is to assist and to promote graduate education. So it's kind of like pipeline programs that we have through TRIO. But the overall goal of it is to promote, obviously, assistance for, low income, first gen, and underrepresented students to further their education.
Nice. And I really appreciate that because in my episode before this, I talked to the audience and say, hey, my experience was I didn't even know I wanted to go to college. I didn't even know what research was until I met you, literally. You're the one who introduced me into research and what it is. And, I got accepted to the program and it was history from there. But I think it is important for people to understand that there's a lot of opportunities out there. And for me, it was discovery through another professor who introduced me to you. But then from there, you introduced me to all these other types of programs that are available. Did you always feel like you knew you wanted to do this, like run these programs or help students or things like that?
So no, as I mentioned, initially, as I mentioned, I was looking more into going to corporate. So that was always my thing. Now I'll give you a little story on how I ended up working at Kane, because as we all know, we graduate from a certain degree and we're thinking to work somewhere, but then, things happen and you end up working somewhere totally different than you expected. So, I graduated from college in May of 2002. And then I was actually 2004 with my master's. And I was looking to, I was applying to different places. At that time, I was getting some interviews. It was not what I was looking for, a lot of sales, which I'm definitely not interested in. And so I graduated in May. I was, actively looking for a job. And then in December, one of my good friends had told me he did my master's program with me. And he was pretty much my study buddy the whole time as, undergrad and grad. And he said, hey, we have this program at Kane, it's the GERA program We're looking, it's a brand new program. It's a grant program. We're looking for about 8 counselors to work with high school students and middle school students to promote, college education. Are you interested? And I said, I was like, you know what? It's helping people. I like to help people. That's in my nature. So I said, sure, let me apply. So I didn't think I was gonna, end up here, but I applied. I got the position, and once I started working with students, I did realize like, hey, this is awesome. Like just the students that I work with and the amount that what I was able to help them with, like it was something very, I guess, satisfying and rewarding. So after I got in it by accident or by chance, then I realized that it's something that I do see myself doing like long term because I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, that's nice. I mean, to give back sometimes and also help. I mean, I taught for a couple years young kids. I also talk about in my podcast how fulfilling that was. Actually changed my viewpoints in life a lot when you help out people like that. So it's always nice to do stuff like that. It really prepares you for other things. But do you feel like throughout your degrees, your years of your training for getting your associates, bachelor, and masters, do you feel like it was adequate training to prepare you for what you're doing now? Or do you think it just helped you get there and then you trained yourself as you progressed?
So I would say it kind of helped me get there because obviously, in the role that I'm in now as a director, I needed the degrees. But I felt like once I got in the position, that's when I learned more because I think I'm more of a hands-on. And as we all know, college teaches you the basics. And, my public administration, a few things did help me out or do help me out with what I'm currently doing. But I would say that for the most part, I've learned more, it helped me get to where I'm at. But I think I've learned more throughout the years with the experience and in my different roles at the university.
Okay. Yeah, and that's pretty much a common theme. I asked you that question because it is a common theme in the podcast of people doing a certain degree and they end up, and you said it, they end
Yeah.
up doing something completely different. I mean, for me, it was obviously I stayed within, but other people did not, which is totally fine. It's totally fine.
I mean, mine was a little bit different, but not completely. I mean, it was still management. It's just I was thinking to do more corporate, and I ended up doing more, working at a university. But it wasn't too different, but slightly, slightly.
Okay. So, can you tell us more about the McNair program? Now, I know this episode's focused on the McNair program, but I just want the listeners to understand and hear about it to really see that this is one of, I don't know, thousands and thousands of programs out there that are available to any type of person, student, adult, whatever it is. But to hear what a type of program like this can do for them. So, can you explain what the McNair in depth, what it does?
Okay, so what our program does is we actually we work with students who are, one of the main focuses and one of the questions. There's obviously several requirements to get in, which is, as I mentioned previously, low income, first gen, certain GPA. But one of the major requirements is you have to have at least an interest in graduate school. If you have at least an interest, we can help you. We can work with you. Now we run a summer research program, a 9-week summer research program, where during the program, you get paired up with a faculty mentor to do research. Now, each research is dependent on your major. So, in your case, you were a biology major. We paired you up with a biology professor. Now, we like for the students to pick their faculty mentor. So, it's someone who they feel comfortable and they want to work with. But some students don't have someone that they want to work with. So, we have like a pool of faculty mentors that we recommend based on the interest of the student and the expertise of the faculty member. So, we pair them up with a faculty member. The one of the main things they do during the summer is research, obviously, because that's one of I guess the main purpose of the program is to prepare you for grad school. And something that's really important for grad school, as you may know, is research. But aside from that, we have a lot of different speakers that we bring. We have the GRE prep. We help you with presentations. As you all know, being part of our program during the end, everyone has to present their research that they did during the summer, which helps with the public speaking. And then you have to submit a paper as well that has to be reviewed by your faculty mentor. We do, GRE prep. We send you to different conferences to present your research. I'm pretty sure you attended a few of our conferences.
I did.
Yeah. So we send you to conferences. We help you when you're ready. on your senior, so that's during the summer, we have different workshops, different speakers, GRE prep. We go to different we do graduate college tours, the presentations. But during the fall semester, especially during your senior year, that's when we work with you very closely to determine what universities you want to apply to. So basically, what we do is we work one-on-one with you during the fall semester, help you identify what universities you would be interested in applying to and based on your major, as well as help you with your personal statement, because you know how important your personal statement and CV resume is for grad school and how difficult it can be. So therefore, we help you with the preparation of your personal statement, of your CV. We help you identify what schools you're going to apply to. We try to do like some PhD programs, because the ultimate goal of our program is to get a PhD. Obviously, not all of them do, but ultimately that's what our main goal is. But at a minimum, we try to get them to do their master's degree. So, we help you with that. And when you're doing the GRE, we provide benefits such as like the GRE fee reduction, GRE fee reduction, as well as when you're applying for graduate programs, you don't have to limit yourself as to how many programs you're applying to, because we give you application fee waivers, so you don't have to limit yourself as to where you're applying. And because nowadays applications are anywhere between 100 to 150 per application. So if you're applying to 10, 15 schools, we're talking about $1,500 that some students may want to apply to certain programs, but because of funding purposes or because of they can't afford it, they have to limit where they're applying to. And also, we try to get you into graduate programs, as well as provide like fellowships or assistantships to because I understand that, okay, the first step is to get into graduate school. The second part is to get some funding, because I think a lot of our students may be interested in going to grad school, but they can't afford it. So it's we try to help you determine what programs to apply you, and to for you to get into a program, as well as trying to get some fundings. And the nice thing about being a McNair scholar is that some universities, especially the ones that have McNair programs, like they actually have scholarships specific for McNair scholars. Like I know recently one of my students that just graduated in the last spring semester, he got full funding for RPI in New York, and it was based on the fact that he was a McNair scholar. So full funding for his master's for 3 years.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
As you were talking, I wrote down the word all-inclusive opportunity.
Okay.
Does that reflect pretty well this program in particular? Because not all programs are like that. Because I think one thing I just want to highlight was we got paid to do this, and we got money to travel and eat and sleep in nice hotels, not 5-star hotels, but pretty decent hotels. So is that a fair definition of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I don't think I mentioned, but during the summer program, as you may know, we provide housing, which for some students, they've never lived on campus. I think that was your situation, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've never lived on campus. We provide, full housing, meals. So how many conferences and, would you say you attended while you were in the McNair program?
I would say probably like over 20.
Yeah.
Easily. But I'm sure it was more.
Did you go to California with us as well? Was that one of them?
No, I wouldn't. I didn't go to that bougie trip that you guys went to.
Okay. I don't remember. This was like 11 years ago. So I vaguely remember on and off some conferences that we attended, but I wasn't sure if you had to attended that one. And which one would you say was your most, I guess, impactful conference that you attended?
Yeah, I think it was when David, Marvin, and I went to the SHIP conference. And it was like a really nice, super nice hotel until we went into our rooms and realized that there was like 5 other dudes in there already sleeping. And we're like, no, this is not going to work. So we ended up like sleeping on the couches or something. But it was a really great conference. And we got to meet a lot of advisors that would eventually, like me personally, an advisor that I have still to this day. So things like that. So it was a very unique experience. A little weird, but it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, conferences, just for people to understand, are usually meetings, scientific, but it could be other types too, where people get together and talk and whatever, meet learn new subjects, presentation, activities, mentoring, all free stuff sometimes like goodie bags. So we always did those trips because we would come back with two luggages, one for our clothes, one for all the free stuff. Now they don't do that anymore. But back in the day, I used to get so many computer parts and
Yeah.
clothes that I would wear all the time. It was a great experience.
Yeah. So a lot of conferences now, I mean, the same as before, but a lot of them are also like major specific. So they'll have like for science, for scientists, some for like architects, we'll have some for like math majors or, women. So a lot of the conferences that, that our students do attend, a lot of them are major specific, but not all of them. Some of them are, interdisciplinary.
Yeah. So if you were to talk to somebody about not just the McNair program, about programs, what would you say to them to convince them that you should do a program of some sort? And it doesn't matter if it's a student or not, but just what would you say to them?
Okay. So I think programs are extremely important, mainly as an undergrad, because people need to understand that, a degree alone is not really sufficient. I think being involved in programs are, something that's a must. So, for example, for a lot of my students that have gotten into PhD programs, they may not have had the highest GPA, but they've gotten into good, PhD programs. Reason being is because they've actually, their GPA may not be as strong, but they've been involved in programs such as the McNair program, which, just by saying that, you've been involved in our program, it knows that you have a little bit of research, a little bit of background, of what it takes for a graduate student. And I've known people that have like 3.9, 4.0 GPAs that have not gotten into PhD programs because, yes, their GPA is extremely high, but that's all they have to show for. And then I have students that the GPA may not be as strong, but they are in programs such as our program and they do research. And because of the experience that they have, they've been admitted into programs. And I've seen that firsthand. So I think being involved in programs overall is very beneficial. I think as an undergrad, if you can get into some type of programming, definitely an internship, but, something additional from your undergrad experience, because when you're graduating and you're looking for jobs, no one wants to hire someone that's just straight out of college. They want to know, well, they graduated from college, but they also have a little bit of experience. So I think it goes hand in hand for, the future, for careers and, moving forward.
Yeah. And what do you think? What is the ultimate goal for these students to get out of the program? Now, obviously, you want them to apply and get into a PhD program or a master's program, but what's beyond that? What else should they be getting out of these type of programs?
I mean, so in that case, I just think that if they don't end up going for master's or PhD programs, at least I want them to experience what it is to potentially go to these programs, because I've had students that have done, let's say, undergraduate research, let's say in biology. And then afterwards they say, you know what, after doing this research program, I realized this is not really the area where I want to be at. I prefer being in this other area, like psychology, for example. And I've seen it. It's gone from biology to psychology. It's gone from computer science to math, so I just want them to, take a little bit of experience and see if it doesn't work for them, then what else can they do? So I think that either way, it'll be beneficial, because even if you don't like what you did with us in the program, at least you know that. So moving forward, you know where you don't want to be or what you don't want to do.
Yeah. And theoretically speaking, they're also not wasting their money going to another school to only find out later on, like, I don't want to do this, which I already had a couple people on this podcast who've said that. It's like, my degree's in this and I realize I want to do this something else. And it took me 4 years to figure that out, and $100,000, it's unfortunate, but you're giving them an opportunity to figure that out early on.
Yeah. And then even like, for example, research. So as you mentioned, you didn't know about research before you got into my program, correct? So just the fact that, you were able to experience and realize, well, you know what, I do like research. I mean, most people look at research as being like, oh, boring or not what I like, but half of them haven't even done research to know whether or not they're interested. So I just want them to come into my program, and experience everything. And then from there, be able to determine what is that they liked and what they didn't like. And then maybe say, hey, you know what, this is definitely the area that I want to go into. And the good thing about the research program is we try to recruit you like in your sophomore year. So you're with us for about 2 years. So if you didn't like how I went the first summer and with a major or a professor, you can always try the second summer with someone else or, different major or different discipline and see how that works out for you. And as you mentioned, before they go to grad school, they can figure out exactly what they want. So they're not wasting their time in grad school.
Yeah. Uh, I talk about it a little bit in my episode, but I'll just tell people how I met you. And then there's a question that follows up. So I was in my genetics class in the lab, and I was helping set up the lab. And I had a research paper on Drosophila madagascar, which is fruit flies. And we were doing experiments. And the professor had looked at my paper and was basically said, why are you reading a research paper? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was a research paper. I just was reading it. I thought it was just, I don't know what I called it back then, just an article or whatever. And she's like, no, that's research. That's like all this. Are you interested? I'm like, oh, I don't know what that word is. And then she told me to go down the hall, which you were in your closet at that time of an office, and go talk to you. And that's how I met you and was introduced to the program. Now, if I didn't get introduced to your program that way, I don't know how I would have learned about it. So what advice would you give to people about learning and discovering programs that they don't know about?
Okay, well, just to give you a little bit of background on that, you didn't know about our program because we were fairly new.
Yeah.
So that's,
I think you were still setting up.
Yes. So, in the case that you didn't know about us is because we had just gotten the grant for the first time in 2007, I believe. So our first summer program was 2008, and that was our first recruitment. So obviously, no one really knew about us because we were fairly new. But in the case like now, where we've been around for like a few years, I would always say, I tell every student that's on, as undergrad, look into we have a department on campus, that has a list of all the different programs and activities and, scholarships, pretty much everything that the university entails. And I always tell them, look at all these different opportunities because something may be of interest to you and beneficial. So for example, if you look at the description of my program, it says, if you're interested in grad school. So for the students that actually read through it and say, well, you know what, grad school is something that I want to do, then they know they can come into my program. So I always tell them that, be involved as possible with the campus, but definitely, be involved with programs, activities, clubs. I think the fact that you're a well-rounded person helps you, in long term to get into these different programs. They want to see someone that doesn't only have a 4.0, but also is involved in activities. And, I think they look into that a little bit stronger than just the 4.0 alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think sometimes as someone who didn't have the greatest grades in the world, not saying I was a bad student, but I struggled, but I think it's sometimes beyond the grades that really give the value of a student or of any person. Unfortunately, that's how our society is for a long time until you basically finish school. And then it's not about that. It's how many lines on your resume or your CV you can fill out. What, and I know you're going to be biased on this answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think it's important for anyone to obtain a terminal degree like a PhD, an MD, a PharmD, things like that? Do you think it's important?
So I am going to be biased, obviously, because I work for this program. But I think it is because, especially now, we see the number of students who have, right now, the bachelor's is kind of like a minimal right now. So we see how students are getting more masters and more PhDs. So now when you're going out to the workforce, it's a combination of your degrees as well as your experience. So I think that especially now, maybe when I was, an undergrad student, it probably wasn't as important because the reality is that when I got a master's, that was like a big deal. Now it's like, okay, you have a master's, great. But I think where we're at now, like the way things are going now, it is extremely important because, by you getting these terminal degrees, you have the experience, you have the knowledge. So when you're looking for certain jobs, you're able to say, okay, I don't only have the experience, but I also have the knowledge. And, it's kind of like a combination of everything. And then that makes you a little more, more likely to be able to get certain jobs that you may not have if you had a terminal degree.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I knew what I was getting myself into when I asked that question, but I wanted to ask you. It's
That's
fine.
fine.
And I also am a proponent for terminal degrees, but some people just can't, for life reasons or financial reasons. But
I think mainly nowadays what I'm hearing more from my students is that if they were to get accepted to a program with funding, they're more likely to go. I think the biggest, factor that they're not going these days is more so financial. That's what I hear most. That's why when you're in my program, we try to not only get you into a graduate program, but also try to get you funding. Because if we get you both, it's very likely that you will succeed and you will, finish.
yeah, money talks
Yeah.
definitely when it comes to that, especially when it's like 4+ years of your life, you know. But
Yeah. I've had students that have gone into certain programs that they really, really like with no funding versus other programs that they like it, but it's not their top choice, but they're giving them a full, stipend and, free tuition, the full tuition and, stipend. So what do? They end up going to the one that provides them the, stipend and tuition. So
yeah, or people like me who only have one option because they only got accepted to one place.
yeah, that's all you need. All you need is just one place, and
That's
you got
right.
it to one place, and look at you now. So that's
Yeah.
perfect.
The one advice I got from my mentor from Vanderbilt, because when I did the McNair Pro, I did it the 1 year, and then the following year I did a different research program. That person still mentors me. He told me when I was applying, is that how many schools have you applied to? I'm like, I've applied to 5, 6 schools. He's like, okay, when you calculate that in terms of how many schools are available in the United States, just the United States, let's say 5,000
Mhm.
graduate schools, you've only applied to like less than 1% of them, right? So he's like, you got to pump those numbers up. You got to apply to like 20, 30, whatever. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money. At the time, obviously I didn't. If people are in your program, they could. Um, Increase your chances to somewhere you can go. And one thing, and I've gotten it out of the program, McNair program too, and I still tell this to people, it's not about what school you end up going to, it's what you get out of it. It could be, I mean, to be fair, there's some schools that are terrible, but there could, whatever school is. Kane, when I was there, wasn't the top-notch school as it is now. I mean, it's great. I mean, my brother loves it. My sister wants to go there. I have a bunch of friends that go there now. They love it, and it's great. There's so many new buildings because I go there now and I'm like, I don't remember this building. I remember this building, but they're doing great. And, you're doing great work there too. So it's just what you get out of it. And I think personally, I've gotten great out of it. The people, my cohort and people that, got a lot of out of the program. So it was great. Um, so I have a couple questions left for you. And one of them is, I just was curious, what do you do? What is your direct role in the McNair program for the students? Like tell us your day in the life of Wendy, the director of the McNair program.
Okay, so obviously, a day to day changes, obviously, but the number one priority of our program is obviously students. So, we have a walk in policy, as you already know. So, the first thing is students, whenever they come in, we have to make sure we're there for them, for whatever they need. That's obviously the priority. Aside from that, my like direct, I guess, role is I do the management of, budgeting, reporting, um, grants, which now I'm writing my grant for our next proposal, which is due in a few months. But basically, we, during in my program, we talk about we have to worry about the recruitment for the summer program, make sure that we're picking the best, or at least the students that we think are the best for the program. We have to do programming for the summer. During the academic year, we have to make sure that my students are meeting with their counselor, at a minimum twice per semester, and if it's their senior year, probably like every other week. But my thing is that even though I don't work directly with the students because my counselor does, all the students know that I'm available, for anything. So that's the one thing that I do miss about being the counselor of the program is I had a much closer interaction with the students, which that's the only thing that I miss. Whereas now, I mean, I'm still, part of the students and I still have a relationship with them, but it's not as close as I used to when I was obviously a counselor. But I always tell my counselor myself, students come first. They're the priority. We're here for the students. And then obviously, even though, by me providing different, speakers and programmings and college tours and all the different things that I put together, it is helping the students. It's just not a direct contact with them. So,
Yeah, that's fair. You're doing the top-notch stuff.
yeah, but I honestly miss the one thing I miss about being a counselor is having, and this because I work with you as a counselor, was that relationship. Obviously as a counselor, you meet with the counselor more frequently, more often. So you build a stronger relationship with the counselor more so than the director. But I always make sure that all my students know that if they need anything, like I am available to them. And I do have a few that come, but obviously the connection is much closer with the counselor because they meet more frequently. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're still friends, so.
I know, but yeah, and I still, friends with a lot of my, McNair scholars, my former, my alum, and I miss you all very much.
We miss you too. I miss being in college. It was a simple life.
Yeah. Now it's like real life, right? Real bills and real
Yeah.
responsibilities.
That's a whole different podcast episode. So wrapping it up here, I always ask my guests the same two questions. The first one being, what are the best and worst moments in your life or your career? And you can feel free to answer in terms of life or career.
So let's start, I guess, with the worst. So my worst, and I wouldn't call it worst. I wouldn't call it worst, but I've been very blessed, throughout my whole, career to have been working with good people, have good experiences. But if you want to talk about something that maybe is a little bit disappointing to me is when I recruit students to the program and I see that they have so much potential. And, when I interview them, I'm like, okay, the student's going to be great. He has so much going for themselves. I see them doing this and that. And in my mind, I envision them doing big things. And then when it comes to graduation, they're like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then they kind of fall off. And then you have other students when you're, interviewing them, you're like, well, they're not really strong. I'm not sure how it's going to work. And, those are the ones that kind of end up being the most successful sometimes. So I guess the only thing is for me, it's a little disappointing when when I bring in these students into my program and I see the potential in them, like such potential. And then they end up not doing that much with it afterwards. Like they end up just kind of falling off the program or not going to grad school or not participating. So I guess that's the most, disappointing thing that I have to come across throughout my career. And the best is obviously seeing my students succeed. So when I have students that I work with, as yourself, Dr. Nobody, and I see where you're at today, that's actually, that brings like joy in me. And this is why my job is so fulfilling to me. It's because I like to help people. That's just in my nature. And when I see students that I've worked with, that I've helped come back to me, 10, 15 years down the road and tell me, hey, because of your program, I am where I'm at today. That's like the most rewarding part of my job, which was why, I enjoy working for the McNair program. It's just, I like to see people succeed and I like to help. That's just something that I've always had in me. And when I see people like you, when I talk to you guys and you guys are also successful, it makes me so proud to know that, you were in my program and that based on what you guys tell me, my program impacted you in who you are today. So that's the best part of my job is the success of all my students.
That's really great to hear. And on the side, yes, your program definitely set me up for success. I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for the program.
That's all I need to hear. So when I hear stories like this, that makes me happy, and that's what makes me, worthwhile me working in this program. There's people like you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So the final question is, what are 5 essential things you think you need to succeed in your life or career? And it doesn't have to be 5. It could be 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever. But yeah, can you share that with us?
Sure. So I think one important one, first of all, is persistence. So I tell students in my program, you may not be the strongest, you may not be, the smartest that you think or the brightest, but if you're persistent in what you want, you will get it. So my thing is, I tell all my students, if you have a drive for it and you just work on it and you're persistent about it, you will get there. I would say passion. If you don't have passion with what you do, the reality is that, there's really, to me, there's really not worth, it's not worthwhile. So if you don't have passion in what you're doing, do you really want to go to work day to day? Like, okay, I have to go to work. No, when you have passion for something, you enjoy going to work, and it doesn't even seem like work. It just seems like, okay, I'm going to work. So I would say hardworking. I think everything in life, if you have to put in the work to see the results. So if you're not, working hard, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you want, you have to, put in your time, invest to be able to, get where you're at. So I think being a hard worker is a must as well. Having a positive attitude. I think that your attitude can get you a very long way. I mean, I always, when I'm interviewing, sometimes I'd rather work with someone that is just someone willing to work with and someone that always has a positive attitude and brings a positive energy to the environment versus someone that's super smart, but the attitude is not there. So I think that's important as well. Having a good positive attitude. And as you know, because you've been knowing me for years, I'm a very high energy, positive person. And I think because of that, so many blessings have come my way.
I like that one. That one's a good one. Yeah. Wendy, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for sharing and being here. I just want to know, are the listeners able to reach out to you in any way?
Yes. Thank you again, Dr. Nobody, for reaching out to me. Yes, if you're a Kane student, I highly encourage you to come visit me. I'm located in Hutchinson, the third floor. If you want to know a little bit about the McNair program, just to see if it's even a fit for you, we have an open door policy, so feel free to pass by. We're Hutchinson 334E. You can look at my LinkedIn. We also have a McNair Instagram that you can look at for more information, but do stop by and get a little bit more information about our program to see if it's something that you're interested in or if it's a good fit for you.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you very much. Listeners, I hope you gained plenty of insights today. This is the beginning of becoming a someone, but specifically the someone you always wanted to be. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please do give me a like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also visit my website, thedrnobodypodcast.com, to learn more about my guests and listen to the episode again, share this episode, and much more. Thanks again for listening to Dr. Nobody Podcast, where we turn nobodies to somebodies. Talk to you all very soon.